It just
Yeah.
it's such a soothing music, and it just, Ray, I was just talking about stress levels. I'm
Yeah.
like, that just
Calms you,
that was nice.
brings you right down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if I may,
Right
Phil,
down.
if I may,
Yes.
nobody
Yes.
tinkles the keys quite like you do.
Ah!
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Love it, Ray. Thank
yeah.
you.
And I would like to say that music was chosen because that is how Phil makes the rest of us feel. Phil is the one who comes and calms us and gets us back together out here
I
when
appreciate that.
we get
Gosh, I
crazy into all
appreciate
this
that.
stuff.
Uh-huh.
Days can get crazy, and Phil's always really good at coming in and going, okay, it's not that bad. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out. And so
A little bit
that
of little
music was
woosah.
for Phil.
Woo.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
which we sometimes do need around here.
As
Like
of late, I needed some
which
of it. Yes.
which we could talk about on this show because I know you hit it up on the last show, Ray.
Yes,
But this upside down deal that we saw yesterday
yes.
on one of our consult calls, um, they had a Hyundai Nexo, which is a hydrogen powered vehicle. So, though it wasn't my call, I'm assuming they're in California because I think that's the only place you can fill up
Yeah.
in hydrogen, and barely at that. Um, his payoff is 51,000 on it, and Jerry, one of our concierge and coaches, looked up new at auction MMR. One had 10 miles, went for 18,000,
Oh my God.
and
Wow.
he had a $15,000 credit for fueling for hydrogen. He got the car 6 months ago. He has $5,000 left on the card.
Ugh.
So, and he's like, I can't afford to fill it up. Cost of hydrogen is way too high, and half the stations don't work. He said there's been a couple times he had to go 70 miles to go fill up his vehicle, and there's just there we were talking. This is one of those things where Phil has to come, de-stress some of us because, like, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't help you, and it puts a lot of stress on us, coach. Not saying don't come to us, but like, geez, I want to help you, and there's really I don't know how.
I just thought of something. Okay, in all seriousness, and it's going to sound stupid when I say it, and it's and it's I mean, when these words come out of my mouth, I'll probably feel stupid for having said it.
Oh.
But my suggestion for someone like this, who somehow got himself or herself into this position in the first place, terrible thing I'm about to say, GoFundMe. I set up a GoFundMe page, plaster it on social media, express your remorse, confess your sins for having somehow gotten yourself into this. Ask for forgiveness from the good folks in on the internet to contribute some money so that you can hopefully get out of this situation. But
Yep.
other than that,
Yeah, and
I
like we were talking, I don't think Hyundai's going to do anything for them. They're not going to be like, but I mean, look, there is something at least morally that look, the hydrogen stations are closing down. Hydrogen fuel went up way up. I mean, he's like $200 just to fill his tank and go 300 miles. I mean, are you like, it's insane.
yes.
So like, and I don't think anyone's going to help him, but like you said, maybe a GoFundMe. And he feels bad, like he's beating himself up enough. Is like, I
Yeah.
didn't do any research. I should have researched. I listened to the salesperson, and and I hate that too. I listened to the salesperson.
Yeah.
Look, when I was at Toyota, every Mirai that got sold, I watched come back on the back of a tow truck. Just the hydrogen just isn't. It's not there. It's not like the electric vehicles that we talk about, where you can just plug them in.
Yeah.
Like even if you had to do trickle charging and plug it into your house and an extension cord. I mean you can't do an extension cord, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
You could plug it in. You can't do that with hydrogen. You can't just put a hydrogen pump in your house. So, it just gets as a horrible situation.
I can't even begin to imagine what the spiff must have been on that vehicle when that salesperson sold it.
I can.
Oh my gosh.
At Toyota, it was $1,500 on top of your commission, and then you had a Toyota card, I think, with another $2,000 on it.
Oh my God!
So it was like they were doing everything they could to get you to sell them, and that included used.
Yes.
That included used, and
wow.
They're doing anything to get those out the door.
I can't imagine being in the position of that kind of negative equity.
Right? What do you do? Like, it took all of our coaches and Ray, we're all getting involved going, okay, what can you do? What can you do? What can you do? Like, yeah, and none of us could come up with something other than
what were the actual MSRPs on those vehicles at that time?
I don't remember. He definitely paid over. He definitely paid over for it. It was only 6 months ago, but he paid over, and I'm sure it was probably add-on products. But I mean, the moral of this story is please do your research.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes, do your research on these. Ray and I, we talked to Jason yesterday on the Auto Insiders. This is going to be a great episode that comes out, but he's up near you, Phil. He's in Detroit. And he talked a lot about EVs. He knows somebody, at one of the OEMs that heads up an EV division, and he sells a lot of cars, and talking about how they don't really make a lot of sense for dealers. And then Ray and I talked about how they don't always make sense for people. I know I'm the pro EV guy here, but I talk to people up in Michigan and those kind of cold weather states all the time. I'm like, look, if your EV is rated at 300-mile range, remember you don't fill it up to 100, you fill it up to 80%, right? And then if that range gets cut in half because you're in a sub-zero climate, man, EV's probably not right for you right now. I'm very pro EV. I love EVs, but they're not for everyone. You got to do your research. If you're in California, sure, buy an EV, great, no problem. But it's not for everyone, and you have to do your research, please, and come to us before you buy a vehicle, not after.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get some people out of the mistakes that they make, and the biggest mistake they make is they don't come to us before they make the mistake.
True. Correct.
You guys deal with it every day, all day, every day. I used to deal with it. I'm glad I don't.
Well, I'm just laughing here because Pojak says, refer him to Dave Ramsey. And I'm thinking well, you know what Dave's going to say.
Dave's going to be more harsh than we're being right now.
Dave's going to be like, oh my gosh, you just need to sell it. Get $15,000 out of it. Pay that $50,000 that you owe down, and take a personal loan and go buy a beater. That's what Dave Ramsey's going to say.
But it's come on, they didn't put that much down on it in the first place, right? Not if they owe $35,000. So I bet they can't get that personal loan. I bet they can't take that kind of hit. And that's where I'm like, so if it becomes a brick sitting in the driveway because they can't get hydrogen to fuel it up, what are they supposed to do? Like, they're just paying for a brick? Like, I understand legally that I don't think there's anything they can do, but morally, I'm outraged by it.
Yeah.
But again, do your research, guys. Do your research, please.
Know what it is you're allowing yourself to get into.
Yeah. I think everyone probably here on this channel and the CarEdge channel knows this, but don't rely on the salesperson to educate you on the deal or on the practicalities of the car. That's insane.
It boggles my brain that when you go buy a car, you're talking to someone who's in sales, right? Sales.
Yeah.
You need to know your product to sell it. Sorry, I'm a bit passionate about that. It's so irritating to go into a dealership and you know more about the car. I mean, you could just be your average person walking in. You're going to know more about the car than the salesperson's going to know, which is
in
just,
many cases, absolutely.
in many cases, right?
Yes.
Look,
Sorry,
when I was at Toyota, my dealership didn't train us on anything. They trained us on a Camry and then just said go out. And every single time I got someone to come in for a Tacoma, I would grab somebody else from the truck center and say, come, because they're going to ask me questions I know nothing about. Because truck people know trucks, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Truck people know trucks and they want all those numbers. And I'd be like, yeah, let me go ahead and Google that for you. Right? Let me, because, and I eventually, I did learn about the trucks and I learned, those kind of questions, but my dealership didn't teach me anything. I really, really, truly did. If there wasn't someone from the truck center available, I truly did just Google stuff. Just like, so we'd be on the test drive. I'd be in the back and they'd be asking me questions and let me Google that because I wanted to give them an answer, but I didn't know. And I find that when I go in for EVs, I always know more than those people.
If I just heard you correctly, you said, well, I want to be able to give them an answer. So the truth of the matter is you didn't just want to give them, you wanted to give them the right answer.
Yes.
Okay. That's the difference between you and a lot of salespeople. A lot of salespeople, they'll just make up an answer. Okay.
Yep.
But
we had that this morning.
Yeah. You hold yourself to a slightly higher standard where you want to at least provide them with the right information, not just any information.
Yes. Yes. I want to. Also, I figured, and maybe I could be wrong, but as we said, truck people know trucks. If I gave them a BS answer, they may be able to see through that really quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
And then your credibility is right out the window. If you don't know
it didn't matter what I said. Yeah.
No.
But I did always want to, and that's how everyone knows the story, how I came to YAA, I think. But, that's how I came here. I was always looking for, the best answers and the best, way to help my customers. That was the way to do it, and
right.
And that didn't change with the trucks. And there were, and we're getting to the EVs. And, I think I get the bulk of the emails for the EVs because usually most coaches say, you should talk to Justise.
Go to Justise.
Which is fine. And I talk and, we're going through this. And I can't tell you that I'm finding myself more and more saying, yeah, maybe your next vehicle should be an EV. Maybe the next one.
After this one, the next one should be.
Yeah. Because while I love EVs, I'm in California. I have access to the Tesla network. Whatever. Like it's all great for me. It's all gravy here. But for so many people, it doesn't make sense. And then there's people who want an EV but hate Tesla. Fine. That's in every OEM, right? Ford hates Chevy, Chevy hates Ford, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, that's good. But then what are you looking at? And like, they find the specs just aren't there. Although I did find, I don't know if you guys saw this quote, BMW says Tesla has a long way to catch up to them on battery technology.
Whoa.
And everybody else in the industry went, what?
That's bold.
So, I mean, maybe they have something coming out. Maybe they do.
You just don't know, right? I mean,
and at least I will give BMW, I think we've said this before, we'll give BMW this. They actually are a luxury car.
Yes.
And when you sit in their electric vehicles, you feel it. You go, okay, well, I see the appointments. I see the luxury. I see the, that you don't necessarily get in the Tesla. I will
not be a buyer of a BMW EV. Their designs are something to be desired. I don't know. They're not liking it.
Are you saying you don't like the looks of many of those? And when you think about the first EV that they came out with, the i3, okay, which, as Justise heard yesterday, the owner of the dealer group that I worked for at the end of my career, Lou, used to always refer to those cars as clown cars. And he'd say to somebody, get one of those clown cars ready for me. I want to take it home tonight. I mean, it was this because it is the dumbest looking vehicle other than a Cybertruck. It is the dumbest. It is the dumbest looking vehicle that BMW ever came out with. It just you looked like a clown driving it. They were a good car. Don't misunderstand me. But yeah, that's how the owner always referred to them, as clown cars.
I'm just
Well, those were built back in that, like in the Leaf days, when it seemed like OEMs are putting out electric cars because they had to pretend that they cared, but they were putting out the ugliest, stupidest electric cars. It wasn't until Tesla came along that someone made one that was actually viable, and then you were like, oh, it's not ugly, and it's viable, and it has real range to it, and they started building it. But before that, they were like these compliance vehicles or whatever, that they were just, it was almost like to prove that electric wasn't viable.
Or they were hoping to prove that that was not the way the world was going to go.
That's what I mean. Like, it was almost like that, and then like, oh god, because they were all ugly. And and Phil and I talked about this the other day. I'm not one who really cares for the look of most cars. I think the vast majority of cars I see on the road are ugly. I'm like, I don't like them. I don't like, and if they're not ugly, they're just whatever to me. Like, most of them are just like whatever. Like, I don't.
Okay, so
you have to go back to like the
that's why you
50s
drive a
and
Tesla.
60s.
Yeah,
so, because you're right, because looks aren't important, because they don't make good looking cars except for the Cybertruck. That
stop it.
No.
but that's look, if you want to go back to when I think cars look good, that was 50s, 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And really nothing past that.
Oh, stop.
I can't think of anything past that I really like. I mean, I will say what
that's a
85
that's a
Trans
bummer,
Am,
Justice.
but there's a reason for that.
That's a bummer, because there are a lot of good-looking cars out there.
I just don't see it. Like, I look at them and I'm just like,
wow.
Okay. I mean,
if you want to go on looks alone, 59 Caddy.
We're getting a better understanding as to why Cybertruck now fits in your.
It does. I admit that. I'm one who loves a Cybertruck because it's different, because it's post-apocalyptic. Because as Elon says, the future should look like the future. That's what that is in there for me. But I've told Phil, my dirty little secret is I don't think the Model 3 is a particularly attractive vehicle. I drive it because I love the car, but I don't think it's ugly, but it's a little too bubbly for me, too rounded, too like I don't.
What did you think of the original Datsun 240Z?
My dad had that car. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
I like the MGs. Dad had one of those too.
Yeah.
And then he went in. No, go ahead, Phil.
A 90s car that was way ahead of its time.
The
Mitsubishi 3000 GT.
Oh my God!
Dodge
yes.
Stealth. Those are two. And the balloons go up. So those were two cars in my childhood that I was like, oh, I really want one of those. And they were really, really, truly ahead of their time.
Yes,
cars. Love
really. I just pulled one up. They just look like they're trying to be Ferrari Fieros to me.
Oh my gosh!
What did you think? Talking about a car that was really ahead of its time? What did you think of the Avante? Because that was really ahead of its time.
That one was, yes.
Of all the cars that I could think of that were ahead of its time, that was. I can't think of any other that was more ahead of its time than that car was. And it was so ahead of its time that when Studebaker shut down, that the employees there bought the Avante so that they could still continue to produce it. Yeah, I mean that I would go for one of those in a heartbeat. But that's just me. And
I have not
Justice is
seen. I
busy.
have not seen that card before. Sorry, I was looking it up because I have not seen that card before. That is interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you like that and you hate the Cybertruck, but
It's
I will.
easy. It's
No,
easy.
that would. I mean, that's definitely a retro future car.
Yes,
Yeah,
a retro future. Okay.
So what the '60s thought the future was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
That fits into that idea, and they were building, the future.
Yeah, I just, I thought for the time that was just a hell of an exciting looking vehicle. Now, I never had one.
Oh, Woody wants to know if we're going to get to the EV subject matter. What do you think,
maybe,
guys? Or wait a minute.
Well,
Susanna Kit, yes, from Knight Rider, was ahead of its time. Absolutely. And look, this is what I have sitting on my desk right now.
Wow.
See, look at that. And it's got the scanner. Sorry, just had to throw that out there.
And Kit was a self-driving car, right?
Correct. Oh, now we're going to go Tesla route, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, we can go cruise. That worked out really well.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the cruise news where this supposed insider, and it's just sort of out there on X right now, but supposed insider says that they worked at cruise. It was all a lie. That when it was in autonomous mode, there was somebody watching the vehicle at all times. Which I said, if that's true, it's much worse than you think, because then why did they keep stalling out? Why did they keep hitting stuff?
Yeah.
Why would it sit in the middle of an intersection for 2 hours? If there was somebody monitoring and taking over at all times, that's much, much worse than the autonomous driving failing.
And aren't they going to do away with the cruise vehicles even in Europe now?
Yeah. So there's a big backlash coming through, and like sort of all autonomous driving is taking a hit right now. Which again leads to Tesla's genius in that they've never gone above level 2. They've said, we're level 2. You got to keep your hands. You got to train. We're not there yet. We're not ready for you to just take a nap or not have a driver in the car. All these other, Cruise and other people are just, they went too fast.
They went too far too fast. They went
too far too fast.
Yeah.
I think it can happen. Just like EVs, I think eventual EV adoption will be 100%, but not by 2030, not by 2035, I think these goals are unrealistic. But to get to today's subject matter,
yes,
one of the things that I found interesting was this. Marco Rubio introduced a bill to overturn the waiver on American-made chargers. So in the Inflation Reduction Act, we have all the American-made, Build America,
yes,
and all that. There was an exception made in there to say that the chargers don't have to all be sourced from America right now. That they can be, made in China, which is where most of them are. And then, Rubio introduced a bill to overturn that. It passed. The president has threatened to veto it, said he's not going to, because I guess the way the bill is written, or the way this resolution is written, it would overturn the entire thing, not just that one portion.
Oh.
So
now I see why it would be vetoed.
Yeah.
Well, so you got the Republicans saying it needs to be American made. We can't have Chinese products. We can't do this and that. So here's the bill. Then we got the Democrats saying, but if we pass this bill, it's going to allow China and other people to make them for everything because it's going to overturn that entire provision. We don't want to do that because we want American made. Like, wait a minute. What kind of political BS is going on? That both sides are saying, no, we want it to be American made, so we can't change this bill, which exempts
can I answer
American made portion.
Can I answer that question of what kind of political BS?
Yes.
It's the normal political BS.
No, I know. It's just like, what?
I'm sorry, but that's just normal political BS. Yeah, it just is.
It's just, you read through the articles, and I thought this was going to be a fun story, and then I read like 3 articles on it, and I'm like, wait, what the? This is whatever. This is just Washington BS. This is why people want to keep voting people with no experience in, because the people with experience are full of poop.
I like the way you think.
Yeah. You look at these and it's like, so you all supposedly want the same thing, and to get that same thing, you have to do the complete opposite of it. And we all know how well the Chinese made stuff is. I mean, anyone here in Northern California remembers the bolts on the Bay Bridge that came from China and sheared off in wind.
Oh, really?
And we had to, yes, major problems. And it all came down to the Chinese steel bolts. They came and they just sheared off. We don't need to hold those cables in place. No problem. It's just a suspension bridge.
Yeah.
Why would you want to hold them in place? I mean,
why? Well, you don't need that. So, like, I've been dealing with this, like, the whole time I've ever lived in California. I've been dealing with these Chinese products, and you sort of get in the, okay, so is that what Electrify America's problem is? Are they all using Chinese EV products? Is that why their network is down more than it's up? And is that what we want to spend taxpayer money on?
Do we really get to decide what we want to spend taxpayer money
No,
on?
I don't think we do. I don't think we do. I think we just entered a third war yesterday. I don't think most of us think we should have been doing that after everything going on right now. So I guess we don't really get to say.
We do not, unfortunately. What else is going on in EV world that we need to discuss?
Well, California hit 50% of new vehicles registered last month were EVs.
Really? Is that new and used cars registered, or just new cars?
I'm sure it's new. It's new. I don't have the definitive answer on that, but I live here. It's new.
What is that stat again? What is that, Justice?
50% of new vehicles registered in California.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Is that sold or?
It's registered. So that's the only way, because like Tesla doesn't report sales, and and so they have to go by vehicles registered to figure out. So it's new vehicles registered.
So literally 50% of all the new vehicles that were registered in California last month were EVs.
Yep.
What would be an interesting stat that, and I'm just going to ask, and I know you're not going to have an answer, and I don't expect you to have an answer, but I would be curious as to what the second highest rate in a state would be. And if I were to guess, it would be significantly below the 50% that it is in California.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe there's another state out there where it's approaching 15%. I don't know.
Yeah. So what state do you think it would be next?
I'll guess Washington or Oregon.
I was going to say Oregon, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually a state like Florida.
It's I almost guarantee you, without looking it up yet, it's either Florida or Texas.
Huh?
Because those are
really
all, California, Florida, and Texas have the 3 highest adoption rates.
I did not know that. But I would have guessed Florida. Do they have? Here's a question for you. I know that Texas has had in the past issues with its electrical grid.
Gee, I've never heard that.
Yeah, especially if it gets cold.
Yeah. Weren't they out for like a whole week last year.
So what type of what's their infrastructure like for their EVs in Texas? I mean, if you're relying on a grid that is unreliable at best, and you're either the second or third largest state for EV adoption, couldn't that be like a major issue?
I would think so. I mean, look, California's got a virtual grid and they're working on that. I'm sure Tesla, when they went to Texas, had something. I know they have they're building some, gigawatt power plants out there and some virtual stuff, but I don't know how close it is to ready or where they are in that. But it definitely does seem like, Florida with the hurricanes, which knock out power.
Yeah.
You got Texas with the only state with its own grid.
Yes.
That is unstable. And you got California, and we're kind of known for our rolling brownouts.
Yes.
Here. And those are the three states with the highest EV adoption. And we haven't built a new power plant in California in decades. So like, even though the population has doubled.
What are you relying on these days?
Look, for all the, the talk about that, I will say we didn't have any brownouts or blackouts this last summer.
Wow.
With the heat.
Really?
Like, it just didn't come through. And, we were told we always have our, what we call flex alerts here.
Yeah.
And that means, hey, do your laundry after 9 o'clock, or, don't run your dishwasher till after 7. And, those kind of things to eliminate some of the peak on the grid. And, we have those alerts. We've had those alerts for years. The flex alert, hey, between this time and this time, don't do things you don't have to do. Does that mean that the Capitol turns off their AC? No, it does not. Just like during the water shortage, they don't stop watering all of their plants at the Capitol either. So it definitely skips government into these alerts. But the rest of us do our part. And, I was very surprised this last summer with the heat waves that came through the entire nation, and that included here, that we didn't have any brownouts, blackouts. I think they may have had a couple down in Southern California. And that was about it.
Huh. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if this is true. Is that right? Texas has $30 overnight monthly charge rates.
Yeah.
Wow.
For the power. Like, if that's true, that's crazy. That's almost as crazy as I saw a story of somebody up in Canada. Apparently Canada has a lot more EV chargers where you pay by the minute.
By the minute?
Rather than the kilowatt hour, which I would never, ever, ever go to somewhere that charged by the minute, because I don't have control of how fast you're giving me the electricity.
Yeah.
That's stupid. But I guess someone did a BZ4X. So mistake number one.
Yeah.
Up in Canada. Canada was beautiful when I went there, so I won't say anything bad about Canada. Even though they'll say something bad about us. So they were charging up there. It was in the middle of snowing. So it was super cold. So their battery was cold. They're not getting that much range. The charger wasn't giving off very much. They spent $90 charging up their BZ4X because it took that long to it took over 2 hours to charge it.
That's
crazy. That person is going to get an ICE vehicle and never consider EVs ever again. Because why would you?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what in the world?
Yeah, the quickest way to turn people off of EVs is for something like that to happen. Where they buy the EV, they're excited that they bought into this new technology and they're looking forward to it, and then they spend $90 to charge up their car. I mean, I would be. I would be calling my buddy that just bought that hydrogen vehicle and seeing if I could work out a swap of some kind. Uh, I mean, that's crazy. That would take people who did go into EVs. That would take them right back out of EVs again.
It would. And, once you go EV, the statistics are very high that you stay there. But I think, I would venture a guess, and I have no data to back me up on this. I'd venture a guess that most of the people who go EV and then leave are probably up in those really cold climates where you get stupid crap like that happening, because it doesn't even make sense. Like, I would be like, no, I'm not buying an EV. I'm just saying I'm going to get something like diesel powered and 4-wheel drive, and maybe something that I can shovel coal into the furnace on, and whatever it is that powers it. But I wouldn't be doing EV. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, that's
not at that. That's
Well, to go with that, Justice, it's very interesting to hear that Texas and Florida have high adoption rates, which I was surprised by that. Mostly heat, right?
Yeah.
It's climate, Phil. It's all climate.
I mean, yeah.
You can drive an EV in the middle of winter in Texas, no problem. Ditto Florida,
true, but
right? Like,
aren't these batteries affected by heat as well, or extreme heat?
Yeah, extreme heat. Yeah, anything over 120. But
so I mean, you got I just that's.
I mean, you
why
do
I
have
was
that,
a
but
bit surprised.
But it is, it's, and it would be, population too. We're talking about 3 of the top 10 populated states. I think New York's higher, but not than California, obviously. But that has something to play into it. And I just want to answer Jay Woody here real fast. We will discuss that more on December 1st. Not to make you wait, but Justin is coming back, and we're going to talk grid and charging with Justin, and we're going to get deep into the nitty gritty because Justin, he comes with numbers.
Yes.
I come with internet opinions, and Justin comes with facts and numbers. So we will definitely be getting into that. But I think we've talked about it a few times that Electrify America's charging stations are just horrid. They're one of the worst.
And that's what makes it difficult for some people to want to make that switch over to an EV. If they're confronted with things like Electrify America, where you go in and 50% of the chargers aren't working. And
there's a line because of it. Like,
yes.
So there's stuff on X that gets posted all the time. Videos of people driving along giant lines of people waiting to charge their vehicle. And I go, look, first off, I can guarantee you half those chargers don't work. This is an Electrify America station. It just, it needs to change. And I think everyone adopting the North American charging standard will help start that, because more people have access to the Tesla network, which will be very helpful. Phil, you got to go, don't you?
I do.
You're hitting up over time. Yeah, I know.
Meetings
you got to go help more people and get CarEdge into shape, right?
That's right. That's right.
Working on our trusted dealer network. This is the guy. That's the guy right there.
That's right.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Phil.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Every Friday, love it here with you guys. Okay. I will see y'all later. Have a great weekend.
You too, Phil.
Right. Okay. Bye.
They are not powered by diesel generators. They do have diesel generators on the plant, but the Harris Ranch, it's not. They have a large solar farm as well. I've charged there many.
You know this. Me, I don't.
Well, you wouldn't know that one. That is the halfway point between Sacramento and Los Angeles.
Oh, I would not know that. Yeah.
So yes, I've charged there many a time. That is one of my main stops.
I was thinking just the other day that I have to fill my car up with gas, and legitimately, I haven't been to the gas station since, I don't know, the latter part of September. But going to be going to our cousins on Thanksgiving, and I'm down to a quarter of a tank, so It's almost time to fill up
So,
again.
yeah, I know it was yesterday's show. You said you were talking about having to fill up your tank, and it was because it was dark early, and you don't like commuting and driving in the dark.
I do not.
And I asked, but I think the show ended before I got it out. How far is the commute from the living room to the bedroom? Is that
it's really walking distance, but when you get my age, any motorized vehicle will work.
I was like, oh, I'm not sure how that 5 o'clock darkness affects your commute, but I was wondering.
Come on, man, it gets dark early. I don't, I'm sorry.
It does, but it gets light early. So for those of us who have to start work at 7 o'clock in the morning, I like that I start work and it's light, and there was a couple of weeks there where it's pitch black and I'm starting work, and that irritated me.
Well, I don't know. It irritates me that like at 5:15, it's like pitch black outside already, and I don't go out a lot. I really don't. But I don't like, one day you'll be 72 and you'll find out you're not going to want to drive at night either. And the fact that
I already don't want to drive. I already don't want to drive at night. My night vision is not I can do it until car, headlights hit me.
Yeah.
And they're all these new LED lights. So they're way too freaking bright.
Yeah.
And it takes me way too long to recover from that. So I actually already try not to drive at night, just because I think any good driver knows when it's time to not drive. And for me, that is late at night now.
Yeah, I am not in on driving when it's dark anymore.
No, I agree.
And it's not because I don't think I can. It's just it's not as comfortable. It's not as comfortable because I can't see as well at night.
Yeah. And I mean, I can adjust. I can drive at night.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not as comfortable as I once was with it, and not as comfortable as I am in the day. I still, knock on wood, have never been behind the wheel of a vehicle that has been in an accident.
Lucky you.
I have avoided many, many, many accidents. This includes fender benders. I've never been, and I have definitely escaped out of situations before, because I try to pay attention. So when I'm okay, except for a deer. So I meant with another vehicle, but I mean, I know you're not referencing me, but yes, I did hit a deer and totaled the vehicle. So
I had a deer hit me. Yeah.
That was, but I could not, even the car didn't see that deer. And I was driving in a car that had cameras and visions and everything else. So before we go, Ray,
yes,
I wanted to end the show, if you're willing to share the story you shared with me yesterday on why it was one of your best days.
Yes,
I would love to end the week on this Veterans Day coming up, and I think it demonstrates the whole point this show was started. And I would love, if you're willing to share that story.
I will share the story, and I will add to the story.
Okay.
So yesterday, one of my dear friends, Glenn Bob, who lives in Mesa, Arizona, Glenn Bob called me yesterday morning, and he called and he said, the reason I'm calling you, he says, I know the world's been a crazy place, and it's not necessarily the best time to be a Jew anywhere. He said, but I wanted to call you and just tell you that I love you and that things will be okay. And I thought, that was, to me, one of the sweetest, most endearing things anybody has ever done for me, because I know with what's going on in the world, this is a time for my children to experience some of the things that I have experienced in my lifetime that they had never experienced. And my hope was that they never would. And unfortunately, they are. And the world just seems to have gone to hell in a handbasket. And because of what Glenn did yesterday, I I tracked down someone who was a customer of mine in Arizona, who's in the real estate business, and is Palestinian, and I sold he and his family any number of cars, and we were always very friendly, and they knew I was Jewish, and I knew they were Palestinians, and our thing was, hey, we're just proud to show the world that there is a way for Jews and Palestinians to be able to work together as human beings. And so I reached out to Nick last night, just saying, I wanted to get in touch with you. I wanted to know that it's not the safest place to be a Jew or a Palestinian today. And I wanted you to know that I was thinking about you and your family, and I'm hoping that your family is safe and doing well. And I got a note back from Nick. He said, that's the kindest thing anybody's done for me in quite some time. And I thought to myself, there has probably never been a better time for, as individuals, for each one of us to reach out to somebody that we know and just say, hey, I'm here for you. You know, I don't hate Palestinians. I hope you don't hate Jews, but just in case you do, here's a Jew that's here for you. And maybe if we could all do that, we could tone down some of the nonsense that we're seeing right now. So yeah, it was. Glenn taught me a big time lesson yesterday, and I'm trying to pass it forward. And I did last night with Nick, and he appreciated it. And I'm sure there's others I could do that with, and I probably will.
And I'm going to take inspiration from you, Ray. I'm going to reach out to some people I haven't talked to in a while that I know. I have some Jewish friends that just I didn't, I was surprised by all this. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, that I was really surprised how all this went and how fast it all blew up. And you probably weren't as surprised, because we've had this conversation before about, I guess I'm naive, whatever. I see, love everywhere I turn, and I see people helping each other. And yes, there's some ugliness, but I always count it as the fringe, the margin, the few, and then, things explode. And I just go, I didn't see that. And so fast that, it has to have been under the surface this entire time.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just never saw it. And it just breaks my heart, because, we started this show to show that we can debate and disagree civilly. That it's fine to disagree.
And still think highly of each other.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and look, we get together in person and we debate so much that it makes people around us uncomfortable. But with absolutely no loss of respect, or anything for each other. With we disagree on things, and there's nothing, like, we don't have a problem with that. It's fine to disagree. I don't understand why it has to be so vitriolic and violent. It doesn't make sense to me. But it's easy, and I know it's easy for the human race.
Lots can be accomplished through conversation.
Yeah.
And when we rule out the possibility of even having that conversation, that's when these issues become bigger than what they should be. It's never too late to find out just how much you have in common with somebody that you might disagree with. And when you find that out, when you figure that out, then so much of this, I'm going to use the S word, so much of this shit can be solved. It's just having an honest to God, heartfelt conversation, not necessarily placing blame, just having a conversation so that you can better understand somebody else's line of thought, and they can better understand yours. And nothing good ever comes of not having those conversations. So it's just so very, very important to not be afraid to sit down across from each other, have conversations, state what you feel, learn things from those that you're having the conversations with, and perhaps finding your view of everything changing to a degree to be more empathetic because of what you just heard from the other person. But if you're unwilling to start that conversation, or you're unwilling to hear what that other person has to say, there's no solution to any of this.
Well said. Well said. There's no, as it has been said many times by smarter people than me, hate has never solved hate. It just, you can't do that. And so reaching out to, friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, and just saying, you know what, I get this is a tough time. I'm here for you. I just want to say I love you, or I like you, or I have met you. And I think you're a pretty good person. That's where we all need to run right now. We're not going to solve any of this with hate.
No, hate is not the answer. And and the answer doesn't have to be love is the answer. The answer is just hearing. The answer is just
listening.
Just having those conversations, trying to do your part to understand why somebody feels and thinks the way they feel and think, and they need to do the same to find out why you think and feel the way you think, and until those happen, it just nothing good comes of it. Just nothing good comes of it.
Yeah.
I shared one other story with you yesterday, and that was, I told you about when I was 16 years old and I was working the boardwalk in Atlantic City, and they had bingo parlors on the boardwalk. If you can play bingo, you can play bango, the most fascinating game on the boardwalk. And so I was a collector. People would have their bingo cards, and I'd have to count how many cards they were and collect the money for. And when I was younger, I actually had hair, and it was blonde. And as I'm collecting, this one woman said to me, she said, with blonde hair and blue eyes, you really ought to be one of us. And I looked at her, I said, I am. I'm a human being, just like you are. And we forget that sometimes. We don't all have to be categorized.
No.
We're just human beings.
Yeah, I'm very against categorization of people. I live in probably one of the meccas of categorizing people, and I don't really fully understand it. Like we're all, because no matter who we are, I guarantee you, we probably have about 90% in common and agree on things. Somehow we have to focus on this 10% or less of things where we disagree, and I don't understand that. Why are we focusing on that? Like, isn't it okay to disagree? I mean, Ray, I'm sure you're like me, and I've surrounded myself in my life mainly with people who disagree with me. I already know my own opinion.
Yeah.
I don't need someone else to go, oh yeah, you're right about everything. Like, I don't need that. I want to hear the other side, so I know that I'm right, because without you being wrong, how would I know I'm right, Ray?
There's a gentleman that's thinking of coming on Auto Insiders. And he said, I watched some of your videos, and there's 3 things that I need you to know that I disagree with you guys about. And so I emailed him back. I said, I think that's great, because, well, why do I just want to talk to people that think the same way I do? I mean, what fun would that be in those conversations? Let's find out why it is that we disagree, or maybe the disagreement isn't quite as big as you might think it is. So yeah, I don't need to just talk to people that agree with me all the time. I don't find that fascinating. I find it fascinating to have conversations with others who can enlighten me and share with me things that I might not have considered. And I'd like to believe even at 72, you're never too old to learn new things. And so
Now, if you have the same opinions at 72 or 50 that you had at 20, you probably have not really stretched yourself very much or learned very much, because Lord knows your opinion should change over time, and you know, stronger, whatever they change to. But I mean, you should be growing as a human being, and I don't think that stops ever. You know,
I hope it doesn't.
yeah.
The
Hopefully.
one thing that I know that hasn't stopped is it is definitely past my lunchtime. I'm
Right.
hungry. And for those of you who are wondering, today is brisket from Castle. So, yes, I overpaid. Okay. Brisket on rye with some horseradish and some mustard, and perhaps some Cooper Sharp American cheese on that. It should be delicious.
It sounds delicious. Now I'm hungry and I have meetings, and it's not even 11 o'clock yet. So
I'm sorry.
we'll see.
Sorry to have done that to you.
So thank you very much, Ray. We will
Thank
be
you.
back next week with Farzad.
Oh, I'm looking
Farzad will
forward
be
to
back,
it, ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen.
He's gonna talk about some stuff I haven't even shared with you, Ray, because I
Okay.
want honest reaction to him.
Perfect.
Speaking of disagreements,
Perfect.
so it's going to be a fun show next week. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and Ray, and to our audience. I love you all. I am so glad to be part of all of this and to have met everybody, to have all these comments. Go forth, spread love out there. Thank a veteran for helping us all be able to share in all of this,
Yep.
and continue to do so.
Yep. Absolutely. Have a great weekend, Justice.
You too.